Wait, before we start, Abby, did you binge all these again?
No, actually, I kind of watched them fairly responsibly.
What?
Yeah, I think I watched The Good Earth sometime last week, and then I did on like Wednesday, Thursday watch like two. But yeah, no, they're fairly spaced out. So I'm slightly less resentful of some of them than I might have been.
Nice. Yeah, you're going to be a little bit more positive. Yeah. It really does. Because I was thinking for some of the ones that I just like might not have enjoyed as much, I was like, man, I hope Abby's not like chaining these back to back. You know?
I will say, I feel like I was fairly negative, not unfairly negative.
It's unbiased hate.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Lights, Camera, Accolade. Today, we are discussing the 10th year of the Oscars, which feels pivotal because we're into the double digits now, which is kind of nice. I'm Sarah.
I'm Jake.
I'm Abby.
So these movies came out mostly in 1937. One of them did come out in 1938, the last one that we'll be discussing, which again, it's like just stick to the rules that you set. But to set the scene for people, the Great Depression continues. This is also the year that Amelia Earhart disappeared. So that's going on right now, just to put that into context. Also, Hindenburg burst into flames. John Steinbeck of Mice and Men. So we had a lot of stuff going on this year. I'm not going to say mostly negative, but tensions were rising between China and Japan as well. And things are getting bad. Things are getting bad for everyone everywhere. So
stay out of the skies, folks. Not a good year to fly, apparently, which will come up in one of our movies this year.
It will, yeah, which was a little bit surprising.
Ooh, I wonder what happened first, yeah.
I did just want to, I don't know if you guys noticed, but I feel like we're getting the introduction of big tobacco this year because there were a lot of people smoking in movies. And I don't think I had seen that in like any of the prior years. So I'm going to just see if that continues being a thing.
Well, I think you'll find that smoking is cool. So
it's going to be a thing for a long time until we decide that actually smoking kills. And I guess that's a little bit less cool.
I just wanted to fit in with the characters. I just wanted everyone to like me.
And it looks so good when you get the lighting right, you know?
It really does.
Unfortunately, it does look sick as hell.
Unfortunately, it really does, yeah.
You gotta make a cigarette that's good for you.
Yeah.
There's gotta be a way.
Why hasn't anyone done that yet?
Yeah.
I've got non-alcoholic beer. It's not very good, but you feel like you're having a beer. They could do the same thing with cigarettes.
Yeah, come on.
I don't know the equivalent to that, so I'm ready to start talking about movies.
I thought that would be funny, but it really wasn't.
That got my wheels turning. I was like, what would be like an equivalent? And then it's like vaping. It's like, no, that's also like that gives you popcorn lung.
The thing is,
nothing's good.
Consuming anything regularly is really not good unless it's like water. Otherwise you got to just change it up. That's the main.
I just want the feeling of being slightly poisoned occasionally.
Just a little bit.
All right, are we ready to talk about movies?
Yes,
I'm very ready.
All right. Well, our very first movie is The Good Earth, which stars Paul Mooney and Luis Rayner as Chinese farmers struggling to survive through poverty, famine, would-be revolutions, and droughts. When the family's stubborn resolve and commitment to their farmland finally earns them real success, the corruption of wealth and beauty threatens to undermine their family ties. Originally meant to star an all-Asian cast, the choice to instead cast Mooney and Rayner and Yellowface brutally shortchanges the audience and undermines what could have been a landmark for cinema history.
They had no idea it was originally intended to be an all-Asian cast. That would have been a totally different movie.
Right?
Yeah.
Case.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that just makes my joke fall flat about crazy that Paul Mooney became Chinese for this. He truly can do it all.
Well, yeah, to piggyback off that joke, my first note was, and I must have written this within like 5 seconds of the movie starting, I said, I'm not proud of this. Wow, I'm not going to lie. Paul looks Chinese. And then a couple seconds later, I said, never mind. He doesn't.
Never mind.
It was just the lighting or something with the first scene. So I backed off that hot take real quick.
God.
This was apparently like the first time yellowface was used in film.
Yeah, they sure pioneered this technology for this
They
movie.
really did. But the person who pioneered it, his name was Jack Don, and he created like a plastic vinyl resin and went on to do all of the makeup in The Wizard of Oz. So that same thing was used for all of the non-human characters and stuff, which is a much better use of this.
Yes. Munchkins are not problematic to emulate.
And your mind went straight to Munchkins. I was talking about the lion, the Tin Man. So
I guess the Munchkins didn't really need facial paint. Let's get back on this movie.
I don't know. Yeah, let's get back to the problematic elements of The Good Earth.
Stop trying to cancel Jake.
When I was looking into when they had talked about wanting it to be a full Chinese cast, kind of sad because Anna May Wong, who we had seen in, what can I think of the train movie?
Shanghai Express.
Shanghai Express. Yeah, she really wanted the role of Olan and was like a personal friend of Pearl S. Buck, the woman who wrote this book, but was turned down and offered the part of Lotus, which she obviously was like, so you're offering me, a Chinese woman in a cast of white actors, the role of the only unsympathetic character in the movie, and turned it down. So like, yeah.
Good for her.
Good for her. Glad that she wasn't in this, honestly.
Yeah,
it
honestly.
was weird because both the female actors, because there's like two distinct female characters in this movie exclusively, were, I think, German. And you could hear it in their voices. I mean, obviously the main character was, but I think also Lotus, the second wife, if I heard correctly, sounded German to me as well. So it was this weird thing of, yellow face, German accent. Like there was, I guess, a very international, to if you want to try to put it lightly, movie. But in terms of the overall movie, I don't know about you guys, but I got a strong vibe of East Lynne goes far east.
Far East Lynne.
Yes, Far East Lynne. That could be the subheading for this movie.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Because it is just like torture porn for this poor woman. I mean, it was interesting to see that chapter of Chinese history and, just how brutally patriarchal that system was. Not to say there weren't some moments of tenderness, particularly earlier on in their marriage, but just the circumstances by which they become married. I mean, Paul Mooney essentially buys this woman who's like a house servant to a landed estate nearby to his small farm. And their wedding night, she's in the kitchen cooking up a giant meal for all the town males in the village. And they're all complimenting the husband on a new wife. And you would not know that it's supposed to be, quote unquote, her best night in her life. She's put to work right away. So it was tough to see that. And especially considering the contribution she makes to the household and how that's in turn, used by the husband in such a selfish way.
Yeah, she's just like constantly self-sacrificing and like the better, stronger person and just getting like trampled on the entire movie.
Yeah, she did win. It was the same actress who won last year in The Great Ziegfeld, Louise Rainer. So she was the first actress to win back-to-back Best Acting Oscars. And apparently that kind of led her to getting worse and worse roles offered to her because they're like, well, clearly you can act with anything. You don't have to get the good parts. And so she pushed back against Louis B. Mayer and was like, this is not, working for my career. So they kept butting heads. And apparently, a quote from him, our favorite villain, he said, "We made you and we're going to kill you." And she made like 6 more movies after this and then left MGM in Hollywood. So she, just...
If it sucks, hit the brakes.
Yeah. But because of studio systems, it's just like once you break contract, it's going to be hard to work in Hollywood. So she...
It's crazy to think that was more compelling to potential employers than the fact that she had won 2 Oscars. It's
isn't that crazy?
Pissed off Louis B. Mayer so you could never work in this town again. Never mind the fact that she had obviously asserted herself. I mean, I wouldn't say that I think she does a fine job in this movie, but I have a feeling why she tugged at so many people's heartstrings was just what the character is going through. I don't know that it's the performance itself that is so compelling so much as the circumstances this character is subjected to, at least for me.
I don't know. For me, I too have a real problem getting past how egregious the yellow face is to look at any of the
for sure.
performances. Like Paul Mooney is making choices as an actor, and I'm like, all I can see is Paul Mooney putting on a weird walk because he's playing an Asian man.
Yep.
And I'm just like, it really goes to show like how much cowardice in making a movie is undermining it constantly, because it's undermining the actors' performances. It's undermining like the story that it's trying to tell. If at any point this movie had something interesting or compelling to say, it's lost that because of how empty it is, because they didn't actually cast it right.
My knee-jerk retort to that would be like, well, yeah, it's easy for us to say that now. But now that you've made the point that they were originally going to fully cast this as an Asian movie, I'm like, okay, well, there's no excuse. The people knew at the time that was an option on the table, and they were like ready to pull the trigger on it. So this was just a really counterproductive. I mean, of course, Hollywood rewarded itself by nominating it, but it's just so frustrating because Anna May Wong, we all know how stunning and kind of mesmerizing she was in Shanghai Express. To imagine her in this role, man, what a leap that would have been for Asian representation in cinema.
I would have been interested to see her version of Olan. I do kind of agree that if this were cast appropriately across the board, I do think she would have made a great Lotus, and I would have been interested to see who would be a strong Olan. But that's also because we've only seen her in one role, and that role had a little bit more of that similarity with Lotus's character versus like the self-sacrificing, humble type of character. I'm sure she could have knocked it out of the park either way, but I would have loved to see this with in all, Chinese or at the very least Asian cast.
Yeah, just because like the writing, the script itself, if you just looked at the script, it's like there's compelling content here.
Yeah.
But it just fails because of how they produced it, which sucks.
Right.
Olan, you are the earth. That was powerful at the end when he's overlooking, because their first night of their marriage, she's so thankful to have gotten out of her circumstances in the big house as a servant. She plants a peach tree, and the movie closes on her passing away at their child's wedding, and her husband, finally acknowledging her value, is standing by the tree, which is now, kind of a adolescent tree, and realizing and saying, Olan, you are the earth. And that was kind of a pretty round, come full circle moment, so to speak.
Even though I liked the script overall and generally kind of the narrative arcs of the characters, there were certain scenes that went on a little bit too long. So I'm going to touch on like the locust plague, which I thought was very cool to see, but also
like interesting from a technical perspective.
Yes. I was like, how did they film this? Was this like documentary footage or something? But apparently they kept trying to do special effect stuff and were not able to make it authentic looking for a plague. But as they were about to just cut that scene entirely, a real locust plague several states away started happening. So they like rushed to capture it on film. Wow. So that what we're seeing is real, which is crazy. I don't know if I'd ever really seen locust footage.
Terrifying.
But now it's terrifying. Like just a black cloud just descending on everything. And I was like, oh, okay, now I get why this is like plague. Yeah, the smell.
I'm so glad you mentioned that because I had no idea. I was watching. I was like, this feels so ahead of their time. How did they do this? But it was just
How did they get all these bug actors like to do this? It's crazy.
The same guy that trained Asta.
Yeah.
Well, do we have anything else to say about the good Earth?
It could have been gooder. But oh my God, I don't
well
know.
said.
Thank you.
All right. Well, our next movie is Lost Horizon, directed by Frank Capra and based on a novel of the same name, which follows disillusioned diplomat Robert Conway and 4 other evacuees who narrowly escape a revolution in Basque China, only to crash land in the Himalayas, where they're subsequently rescued by the denizens of the utopian lost city of Shangri-La. Nominally a movie about what a society untarnished by greed, war, and maybe even death might look like, Lost Horizon, a movie made the same year the first concentration camp opened in Germany, and where one can pick out the main cast by how white they are compared to everyone around them, instead kind of feels bizarrely eugenicist.
A good point. I mean, that you're speaking to an instinct that I felt pretty early on. Go ahead, Sarah.
Well,
I thought you were starting to talk.
I was, but it'll be a bit of a tonal shift. Because you hit on very important points.
On the bright
here.
side.
No. It's more just like about some of the choices with acting in this movie, not from Coleman, but some of the supporting actors. There was the guy who played his brother.
That guy pissed me off.
I can't remember his name.
George.
He was so dramatic throughout it. Yeah, George. So because no one was around to hear me make this joke, and like if a tree falls in a forest, does anybody laugh?
You
so
gotta
I need everyone to appreciate. I gotta repeat it. So you know the scene where George finds out that everything about Shangri-La prolonging life was true, and like his lady love, who was supposed to be young, has like gotten super old and died, and so he like loses his mind and frantically runs off into the snow and like straight off a cliff. So to myself at that moment as he tumbled, I said, and next up, East Lynn. And I'm so proud of that. We're using contemporary jokes. And I'd like to think that someone in 1937 also said this in the theater
I hope so.
while watching it.
I want to believe.
You know, this means we have to relate everything to East Lynn now for every movie this year.
I
'cause
know.
we
I was
started
like,
that
how did
trend.
East Lynn
Yeah.
come up again?
There's
it
a reason
truly
it keeps
will not
getting
die.
remade. Yeah.
Yeah. Just staying power. But yeah,
Yeah.
George, he was so
Fuck
dramatic
George.
throughout the entire thing. Like from the very first moment when they're like, oh, our plane has been which also on that note, did not expect a plane crash movie this early in film.
I mean, the prop work is like the model work is genuinely hilarious. It has like
With
no
the little
weight
plane?
to it. Yeah.
Yeah. But the matte painting in all of this looked very good.
Oh yeah, there are some like really stunning shot designs, and the landscapes are so cool. And I think some of it is actual footage from the Himalayas or from from mountains. So there are shots in this that are like gorgeous.
Did you guys watch this on YouTube, by the way? Or did you watch it elsewhere?
I don't remember.
No, I watched it elsewhere.
Okay, because like everyone in the comments loved this movie. I did not.
Yeah. No.
I definitely think, I don't know, it just got too caught up in its own nonsense. But
I want to go in and take a little bit of a positive stance to this movie, because while I certainly agree it's really weird that in Frank Capra's mind, his sort of fan fiction paradise still has hierarchy and servants, and there's obviously a racial component to that with the several white people that live in Shangri-La in a palace.
Kind of a
and everyone
sexism
else
thing
kind of-
too, right?
Yeah. But in the world that he's created here, which is very much like, I feel like if you're going to be a Frank Capra guy, and we've now seen several of his movies, we'll probably see several more. And I know he's basing this on source material, so it's not all originally from his mind.
Right.
But I do really feel like this is like uncut, crystal, black tar Capra fan fiction. It's like it's a paradise, but it's a paradise of a bunch of Mr. Deeds, of all of them just saying to each other over and over again, why are you upset about that? Let's just chill out here. We've got this perfect little paradise. It's all fine. It's like a whole community of, innocent little babes, which you might feel like is, kind of simplistic or stupid, but I thought it was interesting, like to see that and to see his imagining of that. And, I don't know. I really like the main actor in this, who I know was
Oh, yeah, I think he's
also
great.
Coleman was in Tale of Two Cities too, and I like that character a lot. His voice, there's
Yeah.
something about his voice, dude. I could listen to that guy speak like he's so posh, but not in an obnoxious way, just a really kind of melodic way. So I enjoyed that aspect of it. I thought it was cool that again, it's kind of Eurocentric, but the llama at the place was like this 200-year-old priest who had found his way. Like, it was an interesting mythology, I'll put it that way, kind of an Indiana Jones, Orientalist way. But
my note for when the llama is revealed and Ronald Coleman is like, oh my God, you're him, like the original guy, because you're missing the leg. My note with that was like, crazy that they just have a line of people who keep taking over and have to amputate their own legs to keep this like lore going. I feel like
so
there's
you
a
think
much
it was different
more
guys?
cynical, but no, I just wish it was. I just wish
Sure.
it was so much.
that's the first
'cause I
thing
feel
Ronald
like-
does.
Yeah, exactly. When he gets back to Shangri-La, he has to amputate his own leg
That's
and
so
take over.
funny.
I feel like, I don't know. I tried to look up some reviews for this movie, and Graham Greene, the one who had the ridiculous one for Anthony Adverse, did, at least in his review, said, quote, nothing reveals men's characters more than their utopias.
Yeah.
And I was just like,
It's true.
I feel that in this movie for sure.
Yeah.
I think to me, the most interesting thing about this movie is the fact that this is a movie directed and kind of burgeoning on the golden age of Hollywood by Frank Capra, who has made a ton of movies, tons of award-winning movies from this period, and also like tons of movies that are still being watched yearly by people now. And that there are huge swaths of this movie that are missing. Like they had to restore, I think it was like 24 minutes, and like 7 minutes of the movie are basically unrestorable or completely lost. And they just had still frames from production inserted into those spaces where they just had the audio track. And I think it's just so telling how sensitive a medium this is and how prone to losing things we are. Like we all tend to think like, oh, stuff is digitized, so we have it forever now. But, you know, we already know that that is not a proven way to keep stuff forever. So it just goes to show how much you have to dedicate to media preservation to be able to keep stuff like this.
Yeah, definitely.
Really good point to make on a movie like this. Yeah, because if this was so mainstream and yet it's still missing parts, that speaks to a wider problem from this time.
Yeah, I mean, that was like the movie from a few episodes / years ago, the White Parade, that was just fully lost. So, yeah.
I thought this was interesting, but I totally agree with your points. It's kind of bizarre the way this paradise is imagined.
It also just went on way too long.
Yeah, there's
like,
not
it
enough
made its
movie
point
for
pretty
how long
early.
this movie is.
Yeah, and apparently the first cut of this was 6 hours long.
Bro.
And I'm like,
Holy
how?
shit.
Get out of here. Like, stop.
What are they doing?
And like the llama's speech, like his little monologue in the original cut of it was 40 minutes long.
Jesus.
What?
Yeah. I was like, good Lord. Thank you, editors.
That's what I mean, though. I think
everything you do.
Capra really thought this was this movie came out and he's this is going to change the world.
Yeah. He apparently was reading the book while filming. It happened one night and he was like, this has got to be my next project. And he only wanted Ronald Colman in it. And Ronald Colman was filming A Tale of Two Cities. So he waited an extra year for him to be free. Like that's how much Frank Capra was like, this is it.
It's a passion.
This is my life's work.
It was different for him because it had action components in the beginning. It had that mysticism. I feel like his stuff is usually very rooted in a idealistic version of reality. Yeah. So I thought it was interesting in that way. I think it's worth watching, but it's problematic and it's not a great movie.
Yeah, I think it's just going back to Mr. Green's review about what a man's utopia looks like really is revealing. I just think it's so interesting that this is the idea of a safe and like learned world that is going to be preserved and kind of carry on the torch of civilization for years to come, even if terrible wars happen and that kind of thing, is being made like directly pre-World War II and is espousing like very isolationist, don't fucking get involved with anything kind of ideas. And it's just, I mean, we're not quite there yet. I mean, we are because like Nazis are running rampant in Germany. But
Neville Chamberlain is trying to keep the British out and appease Hitler. Basically, that was a big thing in Europe at this time, was whether to do appeasement or to meet the aggression with aggression.
Right. And if you remember from last episode, very specifically, there were movements in Hollywood trying to stay neutral and not make any strong claims like against Nazis or anything like that. So
Frank Capra out here like, yes, let's go into our little isolationist village in the mountains, please.
Yeah. I can see why that one girl wanted to leave. I don't know.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm ready to move on.
All right. Our next movie is A Star is Born, which stars Janet Gaynor as an aspiring actress and Frederick March as the alcoholic falling star she marries. Filmed in early Technicolor, this love letter to Hollywood, soul-destroying warts and all, is arguably the original of multiple remakes we'll eventually run into on the podcast. While this version lacks the musical elements of versions that present-day audiences may be more familiar with, it's clear why this story of ambition and faded glory became lodged in the Hollywood subconscious for decades to come. A Star is Born wants to believe that all dreams of stardom are romances that will never turn fully sour, even if they end tragically.
This is the first time I've actually seen an iteration of A Star is Born. And I'm sorry to all
Mm.
my aunts who've been telling me for years to watch the one with Lady Gaga and Bradley Cooper because it'll make you cry. But I finally did watch one and it did definitely impact me emotionally. I liked this movie a lot. I really did like it. Just the whole arc of the characters involved, specifically I think this was maybe one of my favorite film portrayals of someone with narcissistic personality disorder that I've ever
Mm.
seen. And I'm speaking about the husband, Frederick March, who I've liked in other things up till now, but I really liked him
He's
after
excellent
this.
in this.
He's really
Mhm.
good. And to see his descent and the painful thing about it is he's conscious of it the whole time, which
Mm-hmm.
is like
Right.
if you know people that have struggled with that type of personality and related addictions and tendencies, a lot of them are self-aware enough to be frustrated by the choices they're making. And I don't know. I don't want to shortchange Janet Gaynor either because it was great to see her again and she's so charming. And it's painful to see the decisions she makes about sacrificing her own well being, especially later in the movie to try to help him. But
Mm-hmm.
I don't, that it was tough. But I think that I don't want to sound like pro, you know, taking the rough way out, but I think he made the right decision in the end because I think he had done everything he could do to manifest her success and he knew he was going to be the thing that held her back. And so he kind of took the tough decision, took his own life, but I thought it was really powerful. I liked this one.
I had watched actually this one before years
Mm.
ago, and at the time I thought like it's solid.
Yeah.
But you know, that was kind of where I was there. But now, genuinely, I think this is the movie that we've watched up to this point that has driven home how much having more like insight and context and familiarity with the time period affects
Yeah,
things,
for
For
because
real.
sure.
not only knowledge about the studio system and what Norman Maine was probably going through, but also the acting styles. And this being our first color movie, which I thought it was going to be Wizard of Oz.
Yeah,
But
me
I was like,
too.
what? I
This was
forgot. So
beautiful.
this one, I'm not gonna like this one made me ugly cry. Like
Yeah.
the kind of climax for everything, I was just like, oh, so sad. Like it really hit. Now having kind of being at the point that we're at in this journey. So just yeah, Frederick March. I've liked him in other things, but this was the first thing. Just like his facial expressions when he hears Janet Gaynor, Esther, saying that she's going to take a step back from Hollywood to take care of him. And he just like closes his eyes kind of in that like recognition and pain of just like, man, I'm really fucking this all up. I can't do this. I was just like, ugh, I'm going to cry. Like, it's so good.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I'm kind of in a similar spot of I have seen this before because some friends and I recently, not recently, but like a couple years ago, watched all of the A Star Is Borns.
Oh, wow.
Um,
Okay.
Just wanting to emotionally traumatize yourself for a day.
And kind of came away with a similar thing of like this one's solid, but I think it has its faults.
Mhm.
I think one of them is it's so hard to portray actors doing acting, so and this movie just kind of avoids it, so you see very little of
Sure.
her
Yeah.
career, which like that's not really what the movie, this particular iteration of the movie, is really about, but like subsequent movies kind of like focus on that more and figure out a way to show that on screen. It's hard to be like, okay, act different in film clips, but it's so good like coming back to this with the context of where at least the movies that we've seen for the Academy, right? Like nominees and winners and that kind of thing. Like to see where the industry is at and then to see this movie is it puts it into so much more context and makes it hit that much harder.
Especially because we've seen, even with Louise Rayner, right, in the previous one, it's like, no, studios, if they decided you weren't going to be a star anymore, whether by your own mistakes or not, that's just kind of, it's a very like fickle industry where you don't have a lot of power. So yeah, there's a lot.
It's not too long after this that famous article about box office poison got released that named a bunch of the big stars of the time, including Katharine Hepburn, who I guess there was like a string of subpar box office returns with big name stars from the studios. And I forget, I should have done research. This just occurred to me though. But this publicist, or this writer, I should say, in Hollywood released this big list of big name stars and were like, just like, don't put these people in movies anymore. And a lot of their careers really suffered for several years after it because of it. So you kind of see Frederick March's character going through that here. And I think the combination of that with the emotional shock of actually being in love with someone and wanting them to be successful and seeing them be successful, whereas you're stalling out. And you're in the beginning, you were adding a lot to their development, but now you're just holding them back. To see his gradual realization of that and the repeated relapses into drinking, man, it was a rough descent to watch.
Yeah, because it's not only holding them back, it's also creating this negative publicity and drama around them, right? Like when she wins her first Oscar and he makes a fool of himself in front of everybody. It's just like, ugh.
He slaps her by accidentally, but it's like, you hear it. It's like... And then later that night, she's taking his shoes off while he's drunk at home. And she lets her Oscar go out of her hand. It lands right next to his shoe. And you're just like, this can't be this woman's life. She can't fall into this. And that's when he realizes that, like you mentioned before, it's painful.
And I think, too, like that relationship is so impactful because we've seen so many movies now from this period where a successful man brings up a successful woman. She starts to eclipse him and he gets jealous, right? Like we see that, speaking of Lubitsch movies, we see it in that one Chevalier movie where like he marries the queen, right? Or the opera movie with the opera trainer and, his starlet.
Or San Francisco.
Yeah, or San Francisco too. But in this movie, like at no point does he feel jealous of her. He is just disappointed in himself for not being able to like hold on to his career. And I think that is such it's really thoughtfully acted by both Gaynor and March, but two, it's just so like carefully calibrated in the script. It's excellent.
Yeah, because he's not holding her success against her. He's holding his failures against himself. And like, that's such a more like powerful character choice. But I do... If we have more to say about that, because there's one other character, well, possibly two, but especially one that I want to mention in this.
Grandma.
Yes.
She was so cool.
That was like Apple Annie.
Yes.
That was Apple Annie from Lady for a Day. She was very cool, but I was also like, okay, Granny definitely partook in the Cimarron land grab, 100%. Like with the story she was telling, I was like,
the timing. Yeah, the timing.
The timing and the story of that. But I also loved.
Fuck.
At the end, when she's like convincing Janet Gaynor to stay in film, it also just made me laugh because there's this scene with them on the red carpet and she's just like fully decked out in like furs and just she's walking that red carpet. And it just made me think she was like, honey, you can't quit the movie. We're just hitting it big. We are going to make it.
She becomes the most vicious stage mom you can ever imagine.
Exactly. But I loved her. I don't know. She had a lot of zest.
Yeah.
She had such wisdom, like old frontier colonial wisdom. I didn't think about it until Sarah just mentioned it, but yeah, I'm pretty sure. Janet Gaynor's career was built on terrible exploitation, but such is American experience in that
history,
time.
Yeah.
Who was the other person you wanted to mention?
Yeah.
Oh, just a very quick mention. The guy who plays like her buddy, right?
I love him.
Helps her out of her. Oh, Andy
Devine.
Is it Devine?
Devine or
Andy
Devine?
Such an iconic voice.
Yes. He was in Romeo and Juliet
little, like,
too.
Wheezy. Yeah, he was. I think he had a small part in that. So yeah, I guess this is the second time.
But we'll see him again this year.
Yes, and I don't know if you ever watched the animated Robin Hood from Disney. Oh, okay. Well, maybe one day as a bonus. But he's the voice of Friar Tuck. So it was very familiar to me from childhood where I was like, I've heard.
Yeah, we were wondering if it was like, oh, it's either got to be that guy or whoever was Friar Tuck was like doing an impression of him.
Yeah, true.
Tell you where I knew him from. In 1963, I think it was, or 64, a really great screwball, big ensemble cast comedy movie came out called It's a Mad, Mad, Mad World. And it's kind of like the original Rat Race. It's what that later not as good movie is based on. But he plays a cop in that. And he's on the phone early in the movie. And his voice is so distinct because I watched that movie so many times as a kid that when I saw him in Romeo and Juliet, I was like, oh my God, I remember that voice. And then I looked up his Wikipedia and had a little moment. So I'm glad you brought him up.
Nice. Yeah.
All right. Do we have anything else to say about A Star is Born?
Really great.
No, just that I cried.
So good. All right. So our next movie is Captain's Courageous, which is the story of a spoiled rich kid desperate to be parented. When he falls off the back of a steamer ship bound for Europe, lonely brat Harvey is rescued by fisherman Manuel Fidelo, played by Spencer Tracy, who won an Oscar for his egregious Portuguese accent, and brought aboard the fishing schooner We're Here. While aboard, Harvey learns a thing or two about honesty and integrity under the guidance of Manuel. As with most boat stories, things end tragically for the surrogate father-son duo. When Harvey returns to his real life, his actual father finds himself with big shoes to fill, except not literally because Manuel's shoes are on the bottom of the ocean. Also, baby Mickey Rooney is there, not on the bottom of the ocean, just in the movie.
Just there. Dang, the disrespect to Manuel.
I was gonna say I liked Manuel. Well, because to me, this movie was like basically the water champ, the champ of the seas.
I don't know what that is.
No, you know the movie.
Oh, the water. Oh, the champ, but
yeah.
in the water.
Yeah. Well, this movie's called The Water Champ in my mind, and
Absolutely.
It was a small boy. Except this boy was much less sympathetic. He was a little rat bastard. I mean, it's like one of those things where if it's a kid and he's at school and he like gets picked on once in a while, it's like, okay, that's not good. We got to teach him how to do better. But if everyone hates you, dude, that's a you problem, okay? And I just kept thinking he reminds me of Trump, like the way he was trying to screw everybody over and like cut deals and like doing self-publicity in the school newspaper. He was a little shit. So when he took that...
much cuter in David Copperfield.
Very cute kid and cute accent, I will say. But when he took that very dramatic backflip off the boat, which like when...
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys clocked that, but I was like, damn, was that kid okay when they did that? Was that a stunt with the less famous kid that they used for that?
No, it was, but he was supposed to do the dive differently, but ended up just like accidentally falling backwards. So they were like really quick to get him out, but they kind of, they're like, keep that in. That's actually great.
It's like struggling to get out of the water. They don't know if he's okay. This is great.
Nah, they had like people ready to get him. But I think to all stories that came from this, because I think it took a year to film, the cast got really close. And so for Freddie Bartholomew, this was kind of like a found family sort of thing. And so
you
they
can,
took
you can
good care
kind of
of
feel
him.
that vibe in the movie too. Is like
sure.
everyone seems like they have kind of great chemistry together.
It's just a bunch of guys being guys, no broads to muddy it up, and just fishing and just chucking hooks at each other just for little
doing
gags here
shit.
and there. Yeah, it was awesome. It was like, I'm not gonna lie, I wanted to be on that boat. Like halfway through the movie, I was like, I want to be involved in what they're doing. It probably smells, it's like when you see that meme on the internet, I know it smells funky in there. That was probably the whole boat, but I don't know. I felt like Manuel, yes, it was very kind of arguably racist, Spencer Tracy's voice, but I really liked the character and the way he was like, he was really trying to guide Freddie Bartholomew in a way that like, he wasn't just like, this is the way. He was like, it was a push and pull. He learned things from Freddie. Freddie learned more from him. And it was just a really positive dynamic. And I was so emotional when because the movie could have easily been like the father was just this unsympathetic, distant guy, but he really did mean well. Choice, and he didn't know how to be close to his son. And by the end, the way they hold hands when they're at that memorial to Manuel, I thought was a really nice, another full circle moment. Feel good moment.
Yeah, I liked how they handled his actual dad, especially when he's like crying in Manuel's boat because he just needs the alone time and doesn't have anyone to like confide in or connect with anymore. Just seeing his dad be like heartbroken by that recognition of, oh, we haven't built this relationship. I want to be there for him, but I don't know how to be there for him. And then that culminating ultimately in the audience getting a glimpse that he's trying and it's going to be all right. They're starting to like really bond and connect. I think that was a great choice. But yeah, I really liked, I don't know, it was like fun rivalries between all the different fishing crews.
Yeah, the shit talking,
competitive shit talking, throughout. But yeah, Spencer Tracy's performance, don't know how that won the Oscar because it was kind of giving Wallace Beery as Pancho Villa.
But all his funny one-liners. Right now, I speak English. I wrote that.
Yeah, I feel like they're like the character is interesting. And I don't think it's weird to be like, I don't think Spencer Tracy does a bad job. I'm also just like, but also don't do that again.
Yeah.
No, I think apparently because he didn't know how to do a Portuguese accent. And so what he said he based it on was like a Yiddish voice that he'd used in theater before. So it's just like, those are not the same things.
That's what I was going to say. It's like, I feel worse about Yellowface, but like the Portuguese aren't catching a lot of strays. Like, you know, I mean, they're all right. Who's going to call it out? I don't know.
I just think at that point, just don't do an accent. You know,
just don't do it.
I thought the movie was cute, though. I loved the shit talking between the boats. I do hate the fact that the whole reason Manuel died was they were in this harebrained, toxically masculine like race to be the first boat to get back home. It's like, dude, you got your catch. Just take a leisurely time home. But fisherman's code.
Okay, but that scene where the boat is basically like on its side as they're sailing, I was like, what?
They must have really done that, right?
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I think so for the long shots, but it wasn't like obviously the cast and crew was not on it.
Freddie Bartholomew was.
Yeah, like some of the shots and the compositing are really great. Like even when they're clearly on a set, like they really thoughtfully figured out how to composite it, so it always feels like you're on the water.
Yeah, it looks
not
great.
Just because it was on a boat, but I did get Master and Commander vibes from it, which I love that movie. Just like the camaraderie and, well, I guess because they're on a boat. All right.
I was going to say, I do love that movie, but I'm going to say I think the similarities are mostly that they're on a boat.
Yeah.
Well, also,
I thought more would come to me when I
there's like
started.
a whole scene with like the wreckage and chopping the wreckage off the boat. So that also
happens,
factors in Master Commander.
And he cut when he had to cut Manuel loose.
Let's not spoil Master and Commander now.
Oh, God.
Yeah. All right. Okay.
All right.
Did that one get nominated? Because if not, it should have.
I think it was.
I don't know.
Like,
They're finally re-releasing it in like 4K, which I'm psyched about.
Nice.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Do we have anything else to say about Captain's Courageous?
Water Champ was good.
The Water Champ. Yeah.
I definitely think if you're going to watch, sorry, not to bring back Champ arguments, but I think that this is the kind of like tighter scripting, like looks better. Like it's the evolution of Champ. And I think that if you were going to only watch it, you should watch Water Champ.
Everyone has different opinions. That's like saying Jaws 2 is better than Jaws 1.
Maybe I only have this opinion because I saw the context of the Champ. So, maybe I would not appreciate this movie as much in terms of...
Champ didn't have any racist Portuguese accents.
This is fair. But it also, I do think, well, no, we're going to get too... I don't need to talk about the Champ anymore. Never mind.
Let the Champ stay dead. Yeah. Let the man rest.
All right. Okay, so our next movie is Dead End, which is a day in the miserable life early noir that aims to explore a New York slum through the perspective of the people forced to move through it. Rich, poor, young, old, innocent, and criminal, all of humanity is shoved into this bedraggled but spectacular set of a city street along the East River. As the city is being gentrified around them, a murderer on the run returns home looking to reconnect with his roots, a guy and a gal are looking to escape to a better life, and a bunch of kids are teetering between childish hooliganism and dangerous criminal behavior. What does the future hold for any of these people? Spoilers, it might be in the title.
I absolutely loved this movie.
All right, next movie.
I thought that would prompt more.
No, I want to hear your thoughts.
There's something about, I felt like it was like so clean, and I'm pretty sure that opening shot narrowing in on the miniature of a city is like a famous shot that I've seen referenced in documentary materials about filmmaking in general. But I love the way in this Dickensian way, we zero in on this little plaza in the city by the river. And it's just an hour. It's not overly long. It's like an hour and a half of this deep analysis into these different layers of that community and the way they intertwine. And to see Humphrey Bogart for the first time and to see him in a villainous role, which I've never seen, I totally get why he's so magnetic now. I mean, that was such an interesting arc for his character. The Dead End Boys, the gang of boys, they were so dynamic and funny and felt real. I mean, it felt like a documentary to me. It really did had that gonzo feeling throughout the movie to me. And one of the most impactful things was the shooting towards the end. And there's all these police and this commotion and everything. And the camera takes a minute to go up to the party at the top of the rich people's house. And they're still partying, you know, this really brutal side of the city and this opulent side right next to it. And to see every time they're coming out of the doorway, they're stepping over this gang, sometimes having rough run-ins with them. But I loved it. It reminded me of my favorite TV show, The Wire. I just thought it was
Do not spoil The Wire.
Stunning movie. But I'll keep talking. So hopefully you guys didn't hate it, but I really like this one a lot.
No, it was so great. And yeah, my first note was just about the set and just being
Yeah,
like,
the
wow, this
set's
immediately
spectacular.
looks great. And I was like, this is a set, right? Just the attention to detail. I also like how you use the word clean to describe it, because obviously much of the care
it's
of
not
detail was
clean
just
in
being
city.
the dirtiest,
Yeah.
dingiest.
The cockroaches. Oh,
Yeah, the cockroaches. But yeah, a lot of it looked great, felt great. All of it did not overstay its welcome. All
Yeah.
of the characters, Humphrey Bogart's acting,
All the performances are great.
so good. Which, on the note of like the kids, the kid gang, they kind of became known as the Dead End Kids, and they were
Right.
used in like various different movies and stuff. But you saying that they felt very real. I wonder how much of that is due to the fact that they very much were rowdy boys, because the head of the studio, I think it was, or the producer, Samuel Goldwyn, whoever it was, pretty much ended up selling their contract, because during the filming of this movie, they would just like run wild through the studio. They destroyed property. They crashed a truck through the wall of a soundstage. So I was like, oh my God, this is so on brand for them. And so at Warner Brothers, they went on to make 6 movies. And then they also were released from their contracts because apparently there was just too many antics on the studio lot. And I love that. Like, I love that for them.
so it is real. Yeah. I mean, that's, you could argue method right there.
Yeah, they're just method acting. They are also geniuses.
That was the insurance. That was the dispute with the insurance company. They're just doing method, guys. Don't be so.
Yeah, it's just method acting. What do you want? Yeah, we set fire to it. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, that's how they all talk.
The same director as Dodsworth. So I'm like, this man is
That
a
makes
genius.
sense.
Like, I hope we
Yeah.
see more of his
Yeah,
stuff.
getting great performances out of people.
I think he might be the best so far.
Yeah, it was very, very good.
Yeah, I don't know. I think the one really specific call out is, I should have looked up her name, but the actress who plays Drina.
She was great.
She's great.
Old timey Amanda Seyfried.
Yeah,
I wrote that too. She looked
100%.
just like her. And it
And I
might
was
have
like,
been
is this
because we just
saw her in
yeah.
a movie. Yeah, maybe so it was in our heads, but they really do look similar.
Yeah. Again, we only make like 10 types of faces.
Exactly.
Exactly. Sylvia Sidney was her name, though.
She has that scene where she's talking about that she has connected with a rich man on the subway who kind of thought she was beautiful
yeah.
and took her out to dinner, and she went to his home upstate, and then immediately revealing that it's something that she made up as a kid, and she's kind of just been
Yeah.
holding on to it, and that's like a story that she uses to comfort herself.
Ugh.
Like that whole scene is just so excellent. And I think too, like Humphrey Bogart's scenes with, like, he is playing a villain here, but there is such a like careful layering of, yeah, he's a human person. He's come back to this place. He has like a different face, so people don't even recognize him because he's running from the law. So he's gotten some kind of like plastic surgery, but like his inability to like find any connection in this place that he expects to is so terrific and really carefully played. Just, I think, great performances and a lot of really excellent details. Like not only the set that we were talking about, which is just so meticulously made, but what they are choosing to put on screen at all points are just so carefully calibrated. And I think if it wasn't, this movie would fall apart, right? Because it literally is just moments in time in a single day across a bunch of different characters, and they managed to make that be a cohesive patchwork instead of just being, it could very easily be an hour and a half of the state fair. Sorry.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. 1,000%. And it's kind of, to me, really unfortunate that it was nominated for art direction and cinematography, but it didn't win either of them. I want to say Lost Horizon won one, if not both of those. And while I can see why, because we talked about just like the different stuff that they did with matte paintings, etc., I just feel like this world, the attention to detail, everything that they did, not only with camera work, but with the set design and like the decisions, like you're saying, of what to show and what not to show, was so ahead. I literally had to stop the movie at one point to be like, is this a 50s remake?
Yeah.
Or am I watching the
sure.
right one? Like it felt more modern.
I'm so glad you mentioned the camera work, because that's something I wanted to mention too, because the camera is moving in a way that, to my mind, we have not seen before. It is dynamic. It felt modern. It's jumping from character to character in a way that, a lot of the movies we watched so far, and, if this is the intention, it's fine, but they kind of set the camera up and let the scene play out almost like you're at a stage production. And here, the director understands the medium. He's using it in a way to convey, whatever the point is that he's trying to get across in the scene. And man, you don't realize how significant that is until you see it again after not seeing it for a long time. It gave me a whole new appreciation for cinematography. And this just, I was shocked too, because as I read about some of the movies from this year, this one didn't have as much kind of written about it. But to me, it is so ahead of its time. I mean, it was, you can see a lot of the DNA of other stuff later. Let it be Tarantino with the interconnectedness of different plot lines and characters, or just that snapshot of a community in a moment. The way the movie pulls out from that plaza and goes back to that miniature in the same way that it zeroes in the beginning at the end. It's a really nice closed loop. I feel like that's almost a theme this year, but executed the best in this film. Yeah.
I also think the fact that in the opening text scroll, it calls out gentrification as like a thing that is happening in this environment. It's literally like, oh, the rivers used to be the slums, until people were like, actually, what great real estate that is. And like right next door to these slums, overlooking them. Very kind of metropolis where the people above live in luxury while the people below live in abject poverty, but also very real, very true to life. Like it doesn't have to be sci-fi. So that being a core part of this, and getting to know all of these characters and seeing the different ways in which the environment makes it impossible to escape, hence the title, right? Like Dead End. Just so good.
The rich girl going into the architect guy's tenement to try to see him, and her seeing the cockroaches everywhere, and her just like, this is not for me.
Not being able to handle it.
I love too, like, so she's like been poor in the past, but like clearly not that poor. And to that moment where it's like he's coming up the stairs and sees her on the landing, and then realizes that she is like coming down after not having found him, and he like draws back into the shadows. It's so good. Yeah,
that she's like not even going all the way up. Like she's deciding to leave before she gets to his door because of how disgusted, right, she is by that level of poverty, and him just kind of like the blinders being off, right, of like, wow, okay, I was fooling myself.
Right.
Man, yeah, good movie.
Rena was also a striking worker, they mentioned. So she's
I put like striking
the
queen.
The heart and soul of this movie, I think, is her, as she's the moral center. And the lengths she's willing to go to try to better her younger brother's life is really neat as well.
Yeah. She also had kind of her ACAB.
I was about to say, Drina being like ACAB, great.
Yeah. Because she like mentions that even while striking, she and other women were beaten by cops. So she's like, why would we?
Yeah, why would I talk to you?
Police corruption openly acknowledged in this movie. It felt so real. It really did. I could go on about this movie, but I feel like we gotta move on.
We gotta move on to a similarly great movie, I'm sure, right?
What's next?
Yeah. Our next movie
you guys
is
love her.
100 Men and a Girl, despite the suspect title. No, so 100 Men and a Girl stars Deanna Durbin from Three Smart Girls as yet another plucky junior songstress determined to bend the world to her whims. When her musician father fails to land a job with a respected orchestra, she decides to start her own orchestra staffed entirely by unemployed musicians in an effort to win her father and her friends a radio contract. Lighthearted shenanigans, misunderstandings, and chaotic adventures ensue. As was probably required by any feel-good movie in Depression-era US of A, the hard work of good, honest guys and one stubborn girl wins the day.
Big opera strikes again. That's honestly, my notes on this is very light.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a perfectly fine movie. It's crazy that it's nominated for an Oscar, but like we've seen other weird, like equally kind of thin movies nominated for Oscar.
Yeah.
I didn't hate watching it. I think that like the orchestra sequences, the music's actually really great. And I really enjoy the scene where they show up at the conductor's house and she runs in and gets him and brings him out. And that's actually the conductor from Fantasia, like a famous conductor at the time. And like they're all arranged in the, I guess, the stairwell of this mansion. I think that's shot really interestingly and looks terrific and sounds terrific. But I mean, it's kind of like a fun, lighthearted movie that's like you would watch it with your kid or like, you know, your family at Thanksgiving. That's the vibe.
Yep. That is absolutely. I was going to say it's very much like a family film at like Christmas or like you're saying Thanksgiving for sure. Apparently, though, Winston Churchill's favorite film, allegedly. So
Okay, dude.
he would screen it to celebrate victories during World War II. So.
What?
Deanna Durbin was very popular at this time, but it's a feel-good movie. But I'm like,
how are you like
I will
ordering
say, I feel
hundreds
like-
of thousands of young men to their death every other day, and you're like, let's go watch Deanna Durbin scream into the camera for an hour and a half again.
It's funny because I know you don't like her, Jake, but I find like I would much rather
She's
watch
fun.
like a Deanna Durbin than like a Shirley Temple movie. Sorry, Shirley.
I don't know if I've ever
but
seen
just
a
there's-
Shirley Temple.
I think there's a level of reality of like she's annoying, but also everyone inside the movie kind of thinks that she's annoying.
right.
So like
Yeah.
having been an annoying girl, I appreciate that in a weird way. I don't know. I think that if I was going to watch any child star movie, I would probably watch a Deanna Durbin movie again. But like, again, the bar is in the floor. So
Yeah.
it's fine.
Just to give you guys some examples of some of my notes. Penny is back. She's a pathological liar. Don't act like you don't want to sing. Brat to the cab driver. I don't know. I guess it's like, because I have more patience for like Skippy and Freddie
I was
Bartholomew.
like, you like so
I
many
don't, it's
brat
not
boys.
gendered,
Yeah.
but it's
Isn't
this,
it though?
I don't think so. I think she just, the singing, it's like, stop singing. Just stop. It's like, it doesn't call for it this moment. I don't know what it is. And I'm going to be honest with you guys. I have not fallen asleep during a movie so far in this whole venture. I did fall asleep in this one, but don't worry. When I woke back up, I rewound it. It was towards the end. It was too late. So I just have a hard time with Deanna Durbin. And it's not her fault. I know a lot of people like her. Apparently, Winston Churchill, as you say, liked her.
Winston Churchill. That's one of them.
I do not get it. But hey, you know, to
So
each
I
his
also
own.
read that Anne Frank really loved her and had like a picture of her up on the wall. So
now
you're a
I
bad
have
person,
to. Okay,
Jake.
great. Okay, she's great. Deanna Durbin's great. After the Cavalcade episode, I can't. Okay.
No, I do think between Anne Frank and Winston Churchill, if I was like, who does it make sense to like really love Deanna Durbin? I was like, of course, Anne Frank, like,
Right.
being that age and everything. But Winston Churchill was like a whiplash, like, what, sir? I was like, okay. My notes though started with like, Universal really loved Deanna Durbin. And then my next note is, careful girl, this is how you get sex trafficked by the elite. When she like goes to return the
you're
wallet
right.
into that like super rich
Oh, yeah.
party. I
They're
was
all
like,
wearing
get
masks.
out of there, girl. Yeah.
Ooh, fresh blood.
Exactly.
The Epstein.
I was like, get out of there, Deanna. Get out. No one knows where you are.
I also loved the actor who played the drunken count in Three Smart Girls is also here as kind of a stupid
That's
flutist. But
Yeah.
he's also great. I think that he kind of gets trampled over by Deanna Durbin constantly, and it's always funny. His face is just fantastic.
He's like a taller version of the guy who's the anarchist in that one newspaper movie. Like they have very similar faces.
you're right.
In the front
You're right.
page.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's weird because I
George
get them
Stone?
confused and
George
I'm like,
Stone?
why are you so much taller? And like, that's a different guy.
Yeah, he got like stretched out.
for acting for roles. This is how bad Hollywood was. He went on the rack.
Yeah, get on the rack.
Yeah, I don't know. Save this one for Thanksgiving. It's a good put it on
Good.
in the back room.
Fall
for the youth.
asleep with some tryptophan in you.
Oh man, this would be an excellent movie to fall asleep to. All right.
Except when they start singing and the volume goes up.
I will say, I think the singing is more like it's more reasonable to be here. Like it makes sense why the daughter of a musician would be a
for
singer.
sure.
Like, okay, I'll give it to him. I also do think like she has a great voice, so I get why they.
Yeah, she's great. She's talented.
Sure, so go sing on stage. Stop making these silly movies.
All right, are we ready for our next movie?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Stage Door follows the lives of an ensemble cast of women living at the Footlights Club, a boarding house for actresses and showgirls chasing their next big break. Like most of its cast of tough as nails girls, Stage Door's script is equal parts quick-witted and ruthless as it deals with the highs and lows of show business. Are you tough enough to survive handsy producers, constant disappointment, and the obligations of appeasing an endless string of men for the chance at stardom? And if you aren't, does that make you a tragic victim or just fodder for someone else's success?
Mm-hmm. Oh my God. And they were roommates. My first note from this movie. Very happy to see Katharine Hepburn and Ginger Rogers. And specifically like getting to really see Ginger Rogers acting more. Because we saw in 42nd Street, she had that smaller role, but then we've only really seen her in like the rom-com, which she's great. And I kind of missed it this year. But I really, really loved this movie. I think they captured what it feels like to have, we'll call it just like the objectification of Menjo in this movie. I forgot what his name is, but the producer, right?
Such a
like
dog.
It made me very uncomfortable. Yeah. And I think it made it, I don't know, just like a lot more thoughtful than kind of the standard. We even referenced it earlier, right? Like discovered by a talented guy and rocketed to stardom, where it's always treated as like this dream come true sort of thing. But here it's treated very realistically and in a like, oh, I don't really like the way that he's looking at me sort of way. But you also know in order to like improve your chances in the entertainment industry, you kind of have to deal with a lot of that objectification. And so we get like real glimpses into the lives of all of these women. So they feel vibrant and real and passionate and they're trying to like follow their dreams and they're talented and they have a lot more than just like what they're evaluated by the male characters and especially like Menjo that we see in this. So it really just drove home, I don't know, the ugly truth behind a lot of that hurdle that a lot of women have to go through to make it in the entertainment industry that I feel like we haven't seen to this level before.
Yeah, and I love that this movie is so rooted in their perspective. Like, great roles for all these women. I think that there's so much for them to work with. Like, it's very easy to have a movie about how awful it is to be a woman in the entertainment industry. Like, we've seen, there's billions of those. But the fact that this is so from their perspective and is kind of really interested about the relationships between the women more than it is about them getting their various men that they have to put up with. Like there's so much interiority to all of these characters that would be so easy to kind of gloss over in other stories about, you know, but a gaggle of gals trying to make it in, you know, the entertainment business.
What is it? The Berkdal test? Definitely passes.
Bechdel
test, definitely passes that. I love how distinct all the characters are. I love Lucille Ball in particular. I had
baby
so
Lucille
good.
Ball.
No idea she was such a looker in her earlier. She was never a not good looking person, but I was like, damn, Lucille Ball. Okay.
Well, it's just as Lucy, she always played into like the most exaggerated and goofy facial expressions. Yeah.
But she looked like a fox in those outfits in this movie. But
Adolph Menjo.
I'm not trying to casting couch or anything. I'm just saying.
I'm kidding.
But so I actually did this play when I was 16 in high school, and I was one of the few. There was only like a handful of male characters. I remember at the time, there were all these juicy parts for the female actresses. And it was nice because with a lot of plays, it's like, okay, you're either the main love interest girl or the mom or like the evil crone or like the sultry, you know, but this, it's all these different women that are very real. And I feel like much like A Star is Born, this is a movie that is examining the industry in a very believable way and showing a side of it that I'm sure was interesting for audiences at that time. You know, it's not just the glitz and the glamour. It's like for every star, there's 10,000 people that can't even get a job in the industry. So it was cool. And just so many great stars in this. I mean, Ginger Rogers, Katharine Hepburn, Adolph being a creeper, Lucille Ball. I mean, it just goes on and on. It was great.
Also, just all of the dialogue. You know, it
Oh
was
man,
just like
the script is
wit
excellent.
and snappy comebacks for
Yeah.
days. It was like an Aaron Sorkin screenplay, but all women.
What a treat.
Which what a treat. Like, genuinely love this. I did find out, so great script for sure, but a lot of the dialogue, some of it was improv, but apparently the director earlier that year had set his assistant to go like stay at a home for aspiring actresses for a while to really gather material for the movie and be like, who are they? Where do they come from? Like, what's their home life? Why are they leaving home? Also reference, like, have they been to the casting couch? Was it worth it? So very aware that this was a thing going on right in Hollywood at the time where that power dynamic existed, and a lot of women, unfortunately, would have to appease male powerful figures to kind of get their chance and stuff. And I think at the time, much like today, it was treated almost like a joke, you know, where it's like, oh, you're just kind of like taking the easy way, sleeping your way to the top. But when the assistant came back and kind of told these stories, not only coming back with just like notes of some of what ended up being the greatest dialogue I think that we've seen so far, but really had compelling stories of just that ingrained sexual harassment that women face in the entertainment industry, and kind of making it very clear that the casting couch isn't just like, oh, a fun myth to honestly denigrate female entertainers, but it's a very like real predatory tool of men who have power over them.
Harvey
and
Weinstein.
I think you can feel that. Yeah, exactly. And like, we live at a time, obviously, where it became much more maligned, at least, you know, with Harvey Weinstein and other studio execs when that fully came to light. But it was something that was happening, very open secret, right? And was mostly made light of. So it's just nice to even catch like glimpses of the level of seriousness that it actually was, right, for entertainers at the time.
Yeah, and I appreciate that none of the women in this movie are going into that situation blind. Everyone is walking into these scenes with powerful men with kind of their eyes wide open, and they know what to expect. And they are either choosing to live with it or knowing that it's going to destroy their career if they refuse. So it's not a bunch of vulnerable women being taken advantage of
Such a good
unwittingly.
point.
It is they're making the decision, which makes it sound like, oh, like she chose to be in that room, but that's not really what it is. It's like, it's still this person being like victimized and having to deal with that power dynamic, and like it's a sacrifice, and to get to be a star, right? And it sucks, and the movie knows that it sucks. Speaking of the movie knowing it sucks, Andrea Leeds as Kay Hamilton, who is like the gal who commits suicide. She was in this Guy Powell shows like a year ago and now can't get a part. And she was excellent, and everyone thinks that she was excellent and knows she was excellent. Like, even she gets mentioned by audience members at the end of like, oh, whatever happened to that girl? She was
she's
great.
still
She
around.
She had
oh
God.
Yeah.
Like, she's so good in this.
Do just want to shout out that scene where she's going up the stairs was very cool, because
that's
kind of like
great.
interesting cinematography and lighting with the stark shadows, but the audio design especially, where you have all of those mixed in sounds of like her successful opening nights and applause for her, while also hearing part of like Katharine Hepburn's preparing for her performance and everything. It was just like very, it was very creative.
Like,
Good
if the
choice.
movie wasn't great to watch already, like that sequence, I think would make it worth seeing, just because it's so interestingly designed. I agree.
I also like the way the movie acknowledges that Hepburn's privilege
for
allows
sure.
her to be more assertive than some of the other characters. And I also really like, just from an acting perspective, the way that that tragedy that unfolds with Kay's character committing suicide takes her to that emotional place that allows her to be in the moment and act authentically and be a hit when the play actually opens. And that speaks to, it's cool because, again, we talk about how like people are naturalistically kind of proto-discovering method acting, quote unquote. And like, that's kind of an example of what you want to do. You want to draw on real pain or experiences when a role calls for that. So it was neat the way the story of the movie found a way to convey that.
This is probably my favorite performance of her so far.
Yeah,
because
agreed.
Alice
That's
Adams,
fair.
as we've talked about, was tough. That was a
I
tough
like
one.
that too.
But wrote the same note in terms of her ability to go head to head with Menjou to some extent. You know, I had just written that, like, of course, someone with the power of like wealth and that safety of being able to go home if things don't work out in a very like affluent sort of way can afford to set those boundaries and stand up against things because it minimizes those power dynamics, whereas none of the other women have that.
Yeah.
It's good stuff.
Well, speaking of Katharine Hepburn going against Minjo, she apparently hated that motherfucker.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think this turns into something more later because they are in different movies together. But there's a movie that they made later where she strictly like refused to talk to him because he was like a staunch Republican. Like later he talked.
I read that about him.
He was a friendly testimony for like the HUAC investigations, which happens during the Cold War of like the Red Scare of trying to root out communism in Hollywood and that kind of thing. To the extent that my roommate was looking him up and she found a factoid that his mustache basically in Europe became synonymous with a bunch of like con artist skis-ball characters.
Yeah, that's
and
what
it
it
was
kind of
called
reminded me
Minju.
of.
He was so disliked, his mustache became a hallmark of scoundrel characters.
A
who
lot of
were gonna
mustache
betray you.
styles getting blacklisted in this time period. Sometimes for good reason, other times not so much. Yeah, but a lot that never came back, probably for good reason.
Yeah.
But when you mentioned his political leanings, it reminded me of, with my fascination with Lucille Ball from this movie, I was looking her up. I had no idea she was a communist during this time period.
Good for her.
And it became a controversy later, as you're saying, Abby, when the Red Scare really took off in Hollywood and people were getting blacklisted. And at that point, she kind of had to backstep and she sort of blamed her activities in the 30s when she was in her 20s on her grandfather, who was a very public left-wing political guy. But if you go back and they kind of trace the record, she was like hosting, communist meetings and stuff like that. And the cool thing about that is much later in life, she became an executive at a TV studio, which famously was the studio that greenlit Star Trek. And she was a champion for that show when like all other, Hollywood or TV production companies were like, what the hell is this? We don't know what to do with this. She was like, there's something to this that is cool. And if you know anything about early Star Trek, it was very kind of progressive. And obviously people say, it's utopian and kind of communistic society in the future. So I all that to say, I like to think that she held some of that conviction in her heart throughout her life, even if she had to mask it later.
For sure. Genuine icon. I think it was Desilu Productions because it was her and Desi Arnaz. And obviously I Love Lucy got huge. But the other important and cool thing about Star Trek, and one of the things that I think she kind of campaigned and like greenlit, was Nichelle Nichols was the first African-American actress in a prominent role. And she played a lieutenant. I always said Uhura, but I'm like, Abby has seen Star Trek.
Yeah,
so
it's
Lieutenant Uhura. Yeah.
And she makes out with William Shatner, first time interracial kiss on that show.
Yeah, because during the time period we're in, and this kind of came up with the Good Earth, but not really. But the Hays Code has miscegenation rules where you can't have mixed race.
No fun.
Couples.
All right, are we ready for our next movie?
Yes.
All right. The Awful Truth stars Cary Grant and Irene Dunne as a couple who pursue a divorce only to realize that maybe they like torturing each other too much to let the other person go. Mr. and Mrs. Warner are easily the worst people you know. Unfortunately, they're also perfect for each other, and they're going to prove it through bitter sabotage, physical comedy bits, and by fighting over their perfect dog, Mr. Smith, played by the stupendous Skippy of Thin Man fame.
So talented.
What a great dog.
He was my favorite part of this movie, definitely. That hat thing.
With all his little tricks. He's so good. Such a good boy. Apparently he did sometimes bite actors on set, but I feel like those were probably, honestly, I think he probably sent something that other people didn't.
It's probably Adolphe Menjou.
This movie, it's held in very, very high regard as like a great screwball comedy. It has a digital restoration that looks absolutely phenomenal, but it just didn't hit the notes for me. So I don't know. It didn't do too much for me, I guess.
So I appreciate the fact that it's kind of like tit for tat. Like they're both kind of driving each other insane and sabotaging each other's not even post-divorce relationship, because at no point do they actually manage to get divorced.
Right.
Before no-fault divorce was like a thing, you had a huge like 90-day waiting period between when the judge said you could get divorced and when you could actually get divorced. So this is all occurring in that kind of like 90 days that we're definitely getting divorced. And they're pursuing other relationships at the time while sabotaging each other. And I do like that it goes both ways. And I really like the first like hour to hour and a half of this movie. This movie's too long. Where it's him like sabotaging her relationship, and then like it has her sabotaging him, but it's like so it feels really tacked on, and then it like goes to their reconciliation thing. And I feel like the pacing of it is just odd. It's all the comedy bits are really funny, and I think that their chemistry is really great, but there's something about the pacing of this where I was like, this feels like a bunch of separate movies kind of bolted together.
Yeah, the pacing kind of made the movie feel all over the place. That was like one of the notes that I had taken. The screenplay was written by Viña del Mar, who was the writer of Bad Girl, which I also didn't particularly like. So I don't think it's necessarily just like the editing. I do think for me, it's just maybe some niche in that style of humor that doesn't really land for me. Did love Asta / Skippy / Mr. Smith. He deserved better.
If it's any consolation, he did not know what the fuck was going on.
Yeah. I'm just glad to see him again. I did find out some like fun stuff about the director, though, who apparently was just winging it.
Incredible.
I love that. Love that a lot. And I feel like maybe if I'd known that beforehand, I might have appreciated the movie more, actually. So we have seen a movie by him before. It's Leo McCarey. So he had previously directed The Ruggles of Red Gap, which was also just like fun, right? But a lot of his working style was pretty much no script, no dialogue. Here's kind of like a loose outline, do some improv. And so that was tough for a lot of people, obviously, because it's just like, well, what do I do? And it's like, well, the scene is you're at a piano. Can you sing? It's like, well, I could sing, so it's just like really trying to capture these moments and this like natural humor from people. And I think
makes the movie more impressive.
Yeah, exactly. So now I'm like more impressed by this because it's just like, I think Cary Grant's physical humor was hilarious in this. Like so good. And I think the scene, to bring up the piano, where they are singing like Home on the Range and like her to be love is just like way off key. And her reactions to this are so good. Knowing that like a lot of that comedy was brought out of them more naturally. I kind of like, so when they were singing that scene, Irene Dunn, hilarious. Other guy, completely off key, like genuinely off key. It's not like he was trying to be off key. The director was like doubled over laughing and was like, yep, print it. That's in the movie. So it just sounds like a ridiculous time.
No, that makes me appreciate the movie a lot more, because I feel like the scene to scene comedy is really excellent. It's just like the overall stringing it together is just like, it doesn't quite work for me. But like, she is so funny. Cary Grant is like out queening everyone. The scene at the nightclub where he's like, you're going to be so happy in Oklahoma. And she's like, you can see her like visible, like starting to dread. Like she practically flinches when he says, you can always go to Tulsa for a weekend out. And she's just like, not Tulsa.
So good. And I was like, I didn't really remember seeing her, but once I read it, I was like, that's right. So she was Sabra in Cimarron, the wife. And I was like, yet another movie. Yes, insane difference. And I think much better in the comedy kind of aspects, because she just seems so naturally funny that I'm glad that that's being utilized here. But it just made me laugh, that parallel where it's like, oh, she's about to be forced to move to Oklahoma again. But
and also the scene where he picks her up, her Oklahoma beau picks her up, and she's like small, and he like is shaking her around,
swinging her around like a rag doll,
flopping around. Oh, just so funny.
Very funny. So now that I wish I knew that so much of it was just improv.
That makes me feel a lot better about this movie.
More.
Yeah, that definitely adds some insights and I think explains some things, because it didn't feel like everyone was always on the same page. And so in the first 20 minutes, I was trying to get the tone they were going for, and I couldn't quite figure it out. So I felt a little off kilter the whole time. And like you said, just the pacing and whatnot. But I really loved Cary Grant's physical comedy. I got to tell you, I've rewatched that little sequence of him busting into her singing, where first he's judoed onto the floor by the guard and he falls in like the most ragdoll way. It makes you laugh. And then when he's in there watching her sing and he leans back on the chair and
gets tangled in the chair legs.
That was so funny. I keep watching.
I have to imagine that Irene Dunn's reaction then was probably genuine if they were just kind of winging all of it, and that was just like a comedic choice by him. So good.
You gotta love performers and athletes who are willing to, I think athletes call it like lay out for the ball. Like, I'm not an athlete, but every time in gym class, I like volleyball a lot, and everybody be like, well, there's one thing I like having you on my team. You're willing to dive to get it and stuff. And I just like that mentality, and it speaks to Cary Grant. I think why he became such a force in kind of comedic roles. And apparently this movie kind of helped him make his name. And he was one of the more successful improvisers in it. So I give her some credit. But to me, anything good about this movie, which again, I didn't love it. I thought it was kind of a Frankenstein's monster of divorcee meets the thin man failing at both. But anything good about it, I attribute a lot of that to him.
Yeah, he's great in it.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Mm-mm.
One more.
So our last nominee is In Old Chicago, or as I like to call it, San Francisco 2, Hot Edition.
Yes.
Yeah.
This stars a young Tyrone Power as a slimy shitheel who assaults his way into a business/romantic relationship with Alice Faye's Belle Fawcett. If you love the melodramatic, moralizing, corrupt city politics and song and dance numbers capped by an extended fiery conflagration of last year's San Francisco, then boy does 20th Century Fox have the second movie for you. Remember everyone, if your eyelashes are as long and beautiful as Tyrone Power's, then you too can get away with sending the worst people you know to kill your completely upstanding brother.
I mean, I feel like your summary said all of my thoughts about this movie. I'm just like, yep, correct.
God, Dion sucks so bad. Like,
yes.
I don't know if we're supposed to empathize with him. I assume yes, because like,
I guess
he's terrible. He's ugh. He
literally
sucks.
my note. So again, this was another one where very few notes because the melodrama was high and it was very much a like San Francisco Part 2, but
we've
also
seen this
kind
movie
of
before.
Like we've seen it before. But when Tyrone Power came on screen, I was like, oh, like this is an attractive actor. Like I wonder if we'll see him more. And then my very next note is, okay, he's a huge creep. And then my next note is like, he's out here role playing as Errol Flynn. Like he was just like, so he assaulted everyone. Like it's just the worst human being. And I like his brother, like his whole character thing, trying to be a good lawyer and being like too good, basically. But man, I just really did not enjoy this movie whatsoever. And just like in San Francisco, it's like the disaster that it's all alluding to happens in the last 10 minutes. And even that is just like, all right, this is 80% of the budget. So you're really showing us every minute of footage that you've taken for this.
Yeah.
I get it. Everything's on fire. Everyone's run into the water. But I didn't care for basically probably a single character really in this, like truly. So those are, I don't know.
His relationship with Belle is so frustrating because like there are multiple scenes where she's like standing up for herself against him and then like she'll fold because I don't know.
Because he's hot.
Because he's hot, because it's cool to be sexually assaulted. I don't know.
Bad.
But like, bad. And it caps off at the very end where she is like sitting on a bunch of wreckage basically of their past life in this lake with his mom and Dion. And she like very clearly is about to like refuse him because he's done like reprehensible things. And then like the mom character is like, what a terrible wife you are. And she folds and it
that was bad.
it's terrible.
It's so bad.
So
like
bad.
Terrible things, including basically getting his brother killed. You know, like his upstanding, the good son.
His mom being like, the city didn't crush him, except it literally did because a building fell on him.
Oh my God. So I had to look up like who wrote this.
Criminal.
Who is the screenwriter?
Try them in
this?
The Hague.
So her name is Sonia Levian.
Sonia, what the
She's
fuck?
written a couple things that we've seen.
Okay.
So first is State Fair.
Okay.
Second, Cavalcade. It tracks. It all tracks.
This all hangs together. Sonia, what the hell?
Yes. And apparently she also wrote The White Parade, the one that was lost that we mentioned earlier that we couldn't see. And now I'm kind of glad that we didn't see it. Like,
it's not good that movies are getting lost to time forever.
However, there are some that it's more tragic than others.
Yeah.
Probably. It might be a very good movie. Who knows? But I don't know. 3 for 3 in terms of not enjoyable experiences. I'm waiting for Jake to come in and say
Jake,
this
what's
was
your
his favorite
opinion on this movie?
I'm afraid to.
Oh no!
I kind of like this movie. I know why. I liked the family dynamic, and I feel stupid.
Jake
now.
is just like, I love Irish family.
Yeah, well, that's the whole thing. Like, when she gives the mom is so tough, and at the end she gives the speech, and she's like my husband died for the city, and you died for it too, and now it'll rise from the ashes, and the O'Learys will have been.
Your husband fucking died racing a train. That was so fucking
it was
stupid.
Still sad, and also everyone was so hot in this movie. It was really like I could look past a lot of things because everyone was really attractive in this movie.
Because Tyrone Power's eyelashes are so long and
just
thick.
so long.
I'm talking about the Val
he
Kilmer
blinks
brother.
And it's like hurricane somewhere else. Yeah, the older brother too was very handsome.
I would say he was the hotter of the two, but also
he had a worse mustache though, because he had a mustache. And it's just like the mustache wasn't fully working for him, but I was like, honestly, this man very attractive as
like
well.
When they were fighting, I was like, damn, this is real Irish brother shit. Like, I love the whole, like, you can go and be as big as you want in the world, but when you get back home with your mom, you're going to be told what to do, and you're going to, like, sit in your chair, and Dion may be the lord of the criminal underworld, and the other brother may inexplicably be the mayor of the city, and, like, how did this impoverished family acquire all this influence and power? I don't know. I'm not going to read into it too much. But the family dynamic and drama that created, I found to be very interesting and almost like a Obi-Wan, Anakin Skywalker way in like Revenge of the Sith, like the incorruptible meets the. But it's true. Like the thing that really fell flat for me was like I didn't understand Dion's motivation at any point aside from just
to like the relationship, and how does he get involved in starting the nightclub? Like, is it his?
Yeah,
it's not his money because Belle is apparently like a senator's daughter, and the money he has, he won on horse races. So like,
he's bringing his business savvy. He's like, I had a good idea, and so everyone else is going to fund it, and it's going to make a lot of money, but somehow I will still be in control of the entire venture.
I mean,
because look at my eyelashes.
Exist, but what the hell?
You kind of have to suspend your disbelief with how everything came about and everything like that. But I don't know. I like and it makes sense that she wrote Cavalcade because I think there's aspects of Cavalcade that I enjoy that I see paralleled in this. I like movies about the passage of time, kind of interfamily contradictions and dynamics. I loved the mother character, even though she was like maybe a caricature over the top. I admired her strength under adversity, except she caused the whole fucking fire. But I don't know. I thought it was exciting and dramatic, and like I said, when they were fist fighting, because I don't really like Martin Scorsese's Gangs of New York, but I got those types of vibes, especially as the movie went on. I loved when the villain was trampled by the steers in the stampede. That was cool. But it would have been better if Dion had died and the good brother had lived. Or if
he had just not been like objectively terrible in all ways. Like he just
needed something to make me understand why it was almost like he just wanted to flex on everybody around him. He's like, I'm the smartest guy.
Right. It's just kind of like he's the worst, and it's just like everyone loves him because he's so positive while he's being the worst. And it's like, again, there are kind of people like that who get away with everything, but it doesn't make me like his character or having to watch or care about anything that he, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
everything you guys are saying
I can
is
see
true.
Where you're coming from, because I do see kind of like the skeleton of a solid movie in here, and a lot of it has to do with those types of family dynamics in this setting. I just don't think that it played out particularly well, and it actually played out in ways that made me like annoyed and or angry at times. So
can we at least acknowledge it was better than San Francisco? Because I had the same thought too, that it's just like San Francisco, but I came away with the thing, this is so much better than San Francisco.
I don't know. Like, they both suck.
I don't know. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I'd have to like really put some thought into which one I think is worse. Yeah. But this one, the fire sequence, because again, I'm just like, how
did you notice it was Andy Devine carrying the brother and they got crushed? It was kind of like, it reminded me of Chewbacca.
And no one cries too much about Andy Devine.
Yeah.
I don't know. It made me a lot of Star Wars references with this one. It felt very, it's probably because it's for like stupid people, but sometimes I like to inhabit a stupid mind and enjoy it. Just take it what it is.
Yeah, it certainly was a movie.
Different strokes.
That was a movie. Oh, one other fun little trivia thing, Del. The hot brother, the older, well, I guess they're both hot. The older one, he played the voice of Shadow in Homeward Bound.
Oh my God, an icon!
Yeah.
Oh wow. Yeah, I looked him up too because he actually got a best supporting. Yeah, well, that's part of what I do, but
tends to be who you look up.
Got a best supporting actor win in the 80s for the movie Cocoon when he was in his 70s. He was one of the old guys in that movie. Isn't that neat?
Dang.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I can't wait until we get to like later decades and we're like, oh my God, look at them.
I know.
They're still alive.
Not hot anymore.
Who knows? Maybe he was a hot old man. We don't know.
Right. And maybe by the time we get to those episodes, we'll be old. So we'll be looking at different lenses.
Just so you guys know how different my viewing experience was for this movie. One of my notes is just, I love Irish people with 3 exclamation points. So, I don't know, like, I'm curious what action caused me to write that the other night. I don't know.
I did absolutely have the thought watching this because of the family dynamics and how like Irish they were and stuff. I was like, I bet Jake likes this.
I do. It reminded me a lot of elements of my family. My mother's side is very Irish.
I was going to say the like scene where they're at her house and the dancing scene where she's playing like the organ. That looks like a fun time. I'd go to that party.
Yeah, I just don't think it executed on the way that it needed to for it to not be frustrating for me to watch.
You guys all make good points.
All right, well, that's everything.
Another one down.
Done it.
Okay, what is the life of Emile Zola?
Yeah, which unfortunately for Abby, I'm pretty sure it's a biopic.
Can't keep letting them get
Paul
away with
Mooney,
this.
Right? Hopefully he's...
I think with Paul Mooney,
yeah.
But she hated
race.
Louis Pasteur. So.
Oh, I hated it so much.
Yeah,
Wow.
so I don't know if that saves it necessarily. Well, I enjoyed it though. So okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Do our
outro. On my toes again. If we're all ready. I'm just kidding. I do that all the time to everybody. All right, guys. Well, it's that time again. We are going to sit down together and watch the Best Picture winner this year, The Life of Emile Zola, and we'll be right back to talk with you all about it. Folks, well, we are back after viewing The Life of Emile Zola, the Best Picture Oscar winner for the year 1938. And like usual, I'm going to go ahead and give you folks a blow-by-blow of the story of this movie. Well, our story opens in a small ramshackle apartment in Paris in the 1860s. 2 starving artists are doing their best to keep warm as they discuss their mutual disdain for the established authorities of their day and the hypocrisy of France's artistic, literary, and scientific elite. They couldn't know it at the time, but both men would go on to become major figures in French culture in the latter half of the 19th century. One of these young men is the French painter Sasson. The other is a young writer and the main character of our story, Emile Zola. The men are shortly visited by Emile's supportive mother and sister. They bring the good news that they've finally found Emile a job. He's in luck. It's a book publisher. And in Emile's new job, he's afforded the opportunity to write. He tackles a broad range of issues, always challenging conventional wisdom and striving to expose the truth as he does so. Eventually, Emile's writings catch the attention of local authorities, and he's paid a very unfriendly visit at work by a government censor. This gets Emile fired from his job, but lights a fire in his belly to get out there into Paris and expose the injustice of society. Emile begins to educate himself about the plight of Paris's underclass, the unsafe working conditions of its laborers, and the dire conditions of the city's sex workers. One night, Emile and his old pal Sasson, his roommate, are enjoying drinks in a saloon when a prostitute named Nanon ducks into the establishment to avoid the authorities. Emile aids and befriends the woman, who proceeds to divulge to him the tragedy of her life story. Well, Emile is so inspired by Nanon's tale that he uses it as the basis for a new book, named after the same woman. The novel, which introduces the French public to the hardships faced by many of its less fortunate citizens, becomes a smash hit. Overnight, Emile is catapulted from relative obscurity to literary fame. We're then treated to a montage of all the famous books and diverse topics Emile begins to write about, from the French government's incompetence and the Franco-Prussian War of his day, to political and legal theory, to questions of truth and science. Emile becomes a major force in the French intelligentsia through his diverse but compelling writings. By the 1890s, Emile is in middle age and enjoying the bourgeois prosperity that accompanies literary fame at that time. He lives in a fine Parisian mansion with his wife, and his waistline has grown considerably over the years. One night, he's visited by his old artist buddy Sasson, who chastises Emile over his many creature comforts and apparent complacency. This causes Emile to become introspective for a moment and to question whether he may in fact have more to offer the world after all, this late stage in his career. At about the same time, French society is roiled from top to bottom by a major political scandal known to history as the Dreyfus Affair. This event, which ends up making up the bulk of the film, centers on the arrest, court-martial, exile, and imprisonment of a Jewish immigrant captain in the French military named Alfred Dreyfus, who's wrongly accused of passing military secrets to France's rival, Germany. Rather than appropriately investigating the matter, the bigoted and insular French military establishment allows the true spy in their midst to go free, while pinning the affair on the shocked patriotic family man, Alfred Dreyfus. Dreyfus is publicly humiliated, stripped of his rank, and shipped off to the brutal Devil's Island prison in the French colony of French Guiana. But before he's sent away, his loyal and loving wife pays him a visit and pledges to do everything in her power to clear his name and win back his freedom. Several years go by, and the desperate wife finally gains access to Emile in his mansion for an audience. She plans to plead for the famous man's assistance in securing Dreyfus's release. At first, Emile is reluctant to become involved, but once Mrs. Dreyfus explains that new evidence has come to light exonerating her husband and that the French military establishment recently covered it up to protect their own reputation, Emile is aghast and decides to become involved. Perhaps this is the opportunity he's been waiting for to put his mind to good use again. Emile writes a strongly worded and flowery letter to the French president, imploring him to intercede on behalf of the wrongly imprisoned man and to hold those that persecuted him accountable for their incompetence and their malice. By publishing this letter, Emile knows that he's going out on a limb, and the backlash is immediate and extreme. Angry, nationalistic, and anti-Semitic French citizens begin pulling Emile's books off the shelves and burning them in the streets. Emile is sued by the French military establishment for libel, and dragged-out court proceedings begin. The film then pivots into a kind of courtroom drama picture. Emile and his defense team struggle to mount an effective case as the French judiciary sides with the military and heavily stacks the deck against them in court. The defense is barred from discussing the particulars of the earlier Dreyfus affair and from calling French military officers to stand to testify. This seriously undermines their efforts. Eventually, they're able to call to the stand a court-martialed and imprisoned French intelligence officer who'd uncovered the new evidence exonerating Dreyfus, but who was punished for it. To counter these claims, several French officers involved in the cover-up finally take the witness stand and claim that they have new evidence in the form of a letter that definitively implicates Dreyfus once and for all. But in a twist, the defense is able to all but prove that this new letter, which came out of nowhere, is a forgery, thereby damaging the corrupt officer's credibility on the witness stand. Though it looks like the facts are on his side and he makes a very impassioned plea on his own behalf in a closing speech to the jury, appealing to them as rational individuals rather than thoughtless nationalistic French subjects, the corrupt court finds Emile guilty. He's sentenced to a year in prison and a heavy fine. Rather than complying with the court's verdict, Emile flees to London and continues writing voraciously about the injustice of the Dreyfus affair. Eventually, this has the effect of altering public opinion, and the French government is finally forced to reopen the investigation into the entire episode. This new scrutiny finally spells the end for the true spy, a Hungarian immigrant officer named Esterházy, and his accomplices in the cover-up. Several high-ranking French officers involved in the affair are court-martialed and prosecuted. One of them even commits suicide, and Esterházy flees the country, all but assuring the public of their guilt and clearing Dreyfus and Emile's names once and for all. Emile returns to France triumphant and is newly inspired to write again. He inspires to create a new magnum opus, one that definitively challenges the unjust established order and prevents a coming European war that Emile correctly predicts is right around the corner. But before he can complete this new work, which he plans to title Justice, and before he can finally meet the freed Dreyfus for the first time during his reinstatement ceremony into the French military, Emile dies tragically of a carbon monoxide poisoning in his home from a leak in his stove. We're then treated to a bittersweet ceremony, wherein Dreyfus regains his honor and his status, and the notables of France attend a lavish wake for the late Emile Zola. A particularly stirring eulogy from a friend of Emile's is delivered, wherein he pays respect to Emile's lifelong fight for truth and justice, and implores all patriotic, rational-minded Frenchmen and women to follow his example. So that's a little bit about the film that we just completed, and now I'd love to hear from you guys what your thoughts are on the life of Emile Zola.
Well, I'm especially curious to hear what Abby thinks as a hater of biopics and a hater of biopics filmed or directed by William Dieterle, because this was the same guy as the story of Louis Pasteur. So I just want to know how Abby thinks it stacks up.
Good point.
First.
Good point.
I mean, it's fine.
How anticlimactic.
Wow, all that builds up. This was like the opposite of the courtroom scene in the movie. I set you up, I teed you up, and you're like, eh.
I get it though. I get it. As somebody who's lukewarm on these types of movies, Abby, this is very kind of by the book iteration,
I think it's
right?
Yeah, I will say I think it's probably like the best biopic we've watched for the podcast so far. I'm more interested in really like the nuts and bolts of how this got made and that kind of thing, because like, so it's purporting itself as a biopic about Emile Zola, and it kind of is. Like, it starts out about his like rise from living in a shithole apartment to him being a famous, I guess, muckraker, right? But really, like, that's just kind of the bookend, so you can have this whole Dreyfus affair thing. But at the same time, the Dreyfus affair, a notorious anti-Semitic case, and kind of at no point does anyone say the word Jew out loud. Like, you have that insert shot of the, I guess, the like list of officers, right? And I do think that is very intentional and is drawing the eye to it. But like at the same time, the script itself is kind of avoiding it. But I think that kind of speaks more to probably the tenor of movie production in Hollywood at the time, like Joseph Breen, who's like a notorious anti-Semite who is heading up the, you know, the people who are enforcing the Hays Code. Also, I'm going to blank on his name. It's, what is it? It's George Gissling, I think it is. George Gissling, who is the like head of the German consulate in Los Angeles at the time, who kind of notoriously had his fingers in, you know, working to
like
make
approving
sure, approving stuff, or like writing different studios to be like, if you release this or do this thing, then we can't release this in Germany, which like Germany at the time was like a huge audience and a huge market for movies. So I think it's interesting in the sense of it feels like a kind of a shell game of, we're going to make a Paul Mooney biopic and we're going to hide this Dreyfus affair thing on the inside of it, which I think is interesting. But as a movie itself, I'm like, yeah, it's fine. Paul Mooney's performance is really good. I think the guy who plays Dreyfus is excellent in what few scenes he has. Yeah, it's fine.
What a good comparison of a shell game. Yeah, that is kind of the vibe. A Trojan horse shell game where you're packaged one way, but they're trying to almost slip in that other messaging.
Yeah.
I think the actor who played Dreyfus, Joseph Schildkraut, he did win for this, which I think is very deserved.
Good.
In the few scenes that he had, he very much, I think, was very impactful. And same sorts of thoughts about the kind of decisions around what to include and what not to include. I think some of the speeches in this speak pretty directly to, at least indirectly, to like anti-fascist sorts of sentiments. So I think there was kind of that desire in there, but I do think some studios more than others were playing it safe for various reasons. One being, as you mentioned, the financial impact of not being able to screen the films in Germany. But I know with this one, because this was a Warner Brothers movie, the head of Warner Brothers was Jewish, but he personally was the one who made sure that the word Jew wouldn't be said in dialogue. So it's hard to know, because I doubt he himself was like trying to protect any kind of Nazi anything. But what my guess would be, because America as a whole kind of hadn't decided where they were yet, and I think Jewish people in America also were still finding their place and having to prove that they were, you know, American.
Yeah,
I think it
like assimilation, kind of the pressure to assimilate. Yeah,
like pressure to assimilate and not rock the boat very much while still having a strong connection to this story or strong feelings about what's going on. So it's just kind of a weird time, I think, in the US at this time as the kind of Nazi sentiment grows. But yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting too to think about the context of Paul Mooney. And I know he wasn't like the director or the showrunner on this, but I do know that he had a big creative say in the roles that he played and what he got to greenlight and whatnot. I know he was also personally Jewish, so it may be he thought of this as an opportunity for those that knew where to look and read between the lines to kind of subtly highlight, you know, the struggle that his people had gone through and continue to go through at that time. So I like to think that was there. But all the points you guys are making are really valid and just speak to, and hindsight is 2020, right? I mean, you know, there's political movements that are demagogic and violent, you know, at all different points in history, but you still have to factor in the fact that nobody, well, I shouldn't say nobody, most people would have been able to see the writing on the wall of what was happening. But there is that feeling of everything is shifting in the mid to late 30s, and it's really only later that the full spectrum of the horror that's about to unfold becomes more clear. So you can keep that in mind when you think about a movie like this. But I think even just setting that aspect of it aside, it's kind of examination of the transition from the, much like Louis Pasteur and some other movies we've dealt with, even like Cimarron, that transition from the 19th century to the early 20th, to modernity, to rule of law, to these established, often really aristocratic institutions being subject to increased scrutiny and oversight. You see that in spades here. And it seems like there were particularly figures like Emile Zola were led to believe here that helped push that process along. It seemed like Mooney himself was very interested in those types of figures, whether it be Louis Pasteur or even the main character in the Chain Gang. You know, you might paint some of his movies as a bit moralizing, but in a time period that was as brutal as this, I think that's sometimes, you know, worthwhile.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think of like the other movies this year and throughout. I feel like the majority of them, apart from, as we mentioned, like last episode, a lot of happy endings, which I feel like we don't get as much this year, which is nice.
Yeah.
But they still are mostly more about like personal dramas rather than trying to look at like the world at large or larger political movements. Part of that could also just be, again, where the US was still in the middle of the Great Depression. So trying to avoid quote unquote political radicalism in any direction. So I like Paul Mooney's decisions. I don't know, even though these are personal dramas, they're like dramas because of what's going on contextually around them, right? Like Chain Gang, with obviously the cruelty of chain gangs, and then here the anti-Semitism and cover-ups of, because that was one of the really frustrating parts about watching the narrative play out in this movie for me, was just how much they were covering up and doubling down, even though they knew the truth pretty early on. They were like, well, we can't look wrong because then people will think that we can be wrong and that's bad, you know? So yeah, I kind of appreciate that it still at least has some larger themes to it too.
Yeah, and that is such a good point to make because I think that's such a timeless theme of institutions' sort of knee jerk reaction to defend themselves from any sort of scrutiny. You know, the inertia of institutions, the patronage
Mm-hmm.
networks involved. It's so much like you look at situations like this and you're like, guys, the cover up is worse than the crime in a lot of these cases.
Yeah,
But
exactly. Yeah.
but I think about so many controversies, in the last 25 years, even many ongoing now,
Mm-hmm.
that really resonate when you look at how this unfolded and the fallout. And also speaking to the radicalism point that you mentioned, Sarah, for those with some historical knowledge, you'll know that when France was defeated by Prussia in 1870 and Emperor Napoleon III fell and the Prussians were kind of closing in on France, the city of Paris was taken over by communards who set up the Paris Commune for, I think it was around 6 months, and implemented a very radicalized kind of proto socialist state. It was a very violent context, so it was by no means a utopia, but an interesting little episode in French history that a lot of thinkers and philosophers at the time, from Marx to, I'm sure, Zola as well, had plenty to say about. But I thought it was interesting that they didn't portray that at all because it was a very
They just skipped directly over it.
yeah, if you were a Parisian during the Franco-Prussian War, this was a dominating feature of your life. So they did kind of just skip over that and
Just swerve past
kind of
communism.
make Zola out to be like the prototypical kind of bourgeois intellectual, which, he has value in that, and he does what he can within the confines of that thought process and that class station, but there are limitations to that. And so he's so focused on truth and this assumption that if our institutions are clean and everyone's honest and there's free and open information, well, then naturally their material conditions will improve as a result of that. Not all the way. There's other factors involved, but that was kind of a gripe that I had.
I feel like I would have gotten more out of this one if I kind of knew the context that you're sharing now. So I almost wish that they had just cut even more of the fat about like learning who Emile Zola is by seeing all of those scenes, like show us in other ways. But this was really just a movie about the Dreyfus affair, which I think is compelling. But then it's kind of like, why are we watching all these random Emile Zola scenes then?
Well, I have an answer for you. It's because France banned essentially any fictionalization or like any media about the Dreyfus affair until post World War II.
God.
Still by the 30s.
So they were doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that makes
and two, like, and two, like, I think in real life, it took many years for Dreyfus to actually be reinstated in the military.
Sure.
Really, the way that he originally leaves Devil's Island, which is the place where he's being incarcerated, is they offer him a pardon. So they don't even technically say, hey, you weren't a traitor and are not a criminal. His options were accept a pardon and leave or continue to rot on Devil's Island.
Jeez.
So it took many years. I think it was post Zola's death. I could be wrong on the timeline there, but he did initially have to accept a pardon instead of actually being fully reinstated.
Ew.
So they
I don't know if I'd even
a lot.
want to be reinstated.
I
Like,
know,
obviously,
right?
for
like clearing your name,
but I'd just be like,
yeah.
honestly, I kind of hate France right now.
Yeah.
So
Yes, but you cannot discount bragging rights. I hope he never had to pay for a drink again in Paris.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think he survived an assassination attempt by a right-wing journalist who the journalist also got pardoned because he was like, I wasn't trying to assassinate him. I just wanted to wing him.
Motherfuckers.
So he didn't get convicted for attempted murder.
See, French, I mentioned this when we were watching it, but French anti-Semitism gets a lot of a pass. And I give great credit to, there's a great scholar of the period, Robert Paxton, a scholar on fascism as well, who spoke about Vichy France, which was German-occupied France's kind of puppet government during World War II. And they were some of the most vociferous anti-Semites in Europe. So I can imagine why they don't want to talk about the Dreyfus affair then or now.
Well, I feel like I'm learning a lot about France at this time.
I think
I
that's
was just
really
in Montreal.
my issue with them.
So they were very expensive, their
ah.
poutine. So I'm getting my gripes out now.
No, I think that's why I'm like, this movie was fine. I don't think I'd watch it again, but I certainly feel like I learned a lot in the last, 20 minutes of me being like, okay, but what is this movie actually about? Looking on the internet.
Thank you for adding that context. It makes so much sense when you look at it through that lens.
Does anyone have anything else to say about this movie?
Oh, I will say in the 50s, there is a investigation or like a conspiracy theory. So Emile Zola, he dies of carbon monoxide poisoning from a faulty stove. And it's basically all but confirmed is that someone did stuff his chimney. So it was definitely like someone killed him.
Whoa.
Look, guys, even today,
that's great. I want to see a new movie about that.
Front National, which is a neo-fascist party that's doing well. Like France, we think of it as this very kind of artsy-fartsy cosmopolitan society, but there is this strain of French ultra-nationalism, which oftentimes dovetails anti-immigrant, anti-Semitic trends as well.
Anti-Muslim.
Anti-Muslim now, yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. That's pretty crazy.
I was just going to say this movie kind of reminded me of Mutiny on the Bounty, which is a less interesting factoid than what you said, in the sense that it was like you really learn a lot about a historical episode. So if you like that kind of thing, this is a movie for you. You want to learn about the Dreyfus Affair.
And I do think this is probably more like we've watched some movies that are like based on a true story that are like kind of.
Yeah.
Like if you close both eyes,
if you
feel around.
If you read the first 2 sentences on Wikipedia.
Yeah.
Hey, nothing wrong with
we watched one this year with in Old Chicago. So
yeah, that when I read the Wikipedia of that, I was like, okay, this is very different.
I think they just wanted a disaster movie.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
That's the only reason that was made.
San Francisco made $1 bajillion, and so they were like, we got to do it.
You're like, we too would like to make $1 bajillion.
Set everything on fire.
Well, I guess on that note, who wants to go first for movie recommendations?
Like I always go first. Somebody else.
Abby, it's you.
Let's see. I'm gonna go with. I think that the movies I would say watch are A Star is Born, Dead End, and Stage Door.
Ooh, you're always very discerning, but I like it. I think
there are only
fundamentally,
so many hours that we all have on this planet. So,
right.
Well, I'm naturally a little bit more open-hearted about it. I would not necessarily recommend The Good Earth. I think that was, I mean, if you like learning about Chinese history, maybe see it, but note that it's like obviously problematic for the yellow face. But overall, just like a very long, kind of depressing movie, to be honest. Lost Horizon, I thought this was actually really whimsical and interesting Frank Capra movie. It's very different from everything else I've ever seen from Frank Capra. Obviously problematic utopia, including, gradations of white supremacy and class hierarchy, but just like I said, just a kind of fantastical imagining that I think if you like Indiana Jones and adventure and in faraway countries, you might kind of think it was cool. Plus it had Fred Astaire's buddy in it, which we forgot to mention before, who I always like seeing him. He's kind of silly. Yeah. A Star is Born, I absolutely loved. I was definitely emotionally rattled by that. I think that Frederick March's performance in particular touched me, but also I think that Janet Gaynor did a great job. And just a really powerful, like I mentioned before, to see somebody decline and to be conscious of it the whole time is so painful to watch, and a really kind of satisfying ending in my mind to that. Captain's Courageous, aka The Water Champ, I did think was a good time. That boy is not as good as the other boy, Skippy, but he's still cute. And for all the caveman Portuguese accent that Spencer Tracy is trotting out, I thought their dynamic was really kind of positive male role model material and just an emotionally affecting movie. So I would say to watch that one too. Dead End, as I mentioned before, I really, really love this movie. This is like a top tier movie, and just especially after watching so many movies from this time period, really makes you appreciate some skill behind the camera, which we saw come through here. And just that up to bottom analysis of that small neighborhood in the city was so compelling. I can't recommend that one enough. 100 Men and a Girl, don't bother with that. Winston Churchill. All you need to know is Winston Churchill engaged in genocide in India. So it speaks to, the type of people that would like a movie like this. The fact that this was his favorite movie, take a look in the mirror. if you're one of those people. Diana Durbin, let's bring her reign of terror to an end. Um, Stage Door, fantastic. This was a movie that let female performers shine in a way that I fail to recall another movie so far doing. Really thoughtful, well-written characters, snappy dialogue. Everybody shines in their own way. And Lucille Ball, I know you're dead, but if you could give me a call somehow, I'm open to that. You look great in this movie. Sorry. The Awful Truth. That was that silly one with Cary Grant. Cary Grant falls down. Very funny a few times. Other than that, did not really love
Cary
this
Grant
one.
falls down the movie.
Yeah, honestly. I mean, apparently he made his bones off it, but I didn't think it was a particularly great movie. In Old Chicago, I'm gonna be honest, I enjoyed it. I might be dumb, but I thought it was pretty epic at points. I thought the cast looked great. It had a lot of good Irish values, and there was some pretty big, spectacular, disaster sequences. I view this as a good version of the movie San Francisco, which I thought was a bad disaster movie. So that's all I have to say. Oh, and Emile Zola, I wouldn't watch it again either. It was interesting, but I feel like I can put it to bed.
Okay, so I think for me, Lost Horizon, I'm going to say no, but I will say that I liked the beginning, and I felt like it was an opening to an adventure type thing, like a journey to the center of the earth sort of story. So I was kind of excited, and then it just kind of got bad, and was not ultimately a fan. So I just think that felt like a bait and switch to me. A Star is Born, absolutely, absolutely watch. Great performances, made me cry. Dead End, phenomenal movie, highly, highly recommend. I feel like it was just way ahead of its time. And 100 Men and a Girl, put it on in the background at like Thanksgiving, as we mentioned, but probably wouldn't go out of my way to actively watch it. Stage Door, loved everything about this movie. Highly, highly recommend that one as well. And that's probably it. I think strongest recommendations for A Star is Born, Dead End, and Stage Door, for sure.
We're in consensus on that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because 100 Men and a Girl is really just a background watch recommendation. And Lost Horizon, don't watch it. don't actually bother. So I guess of these movies, though, if we were voting members of the Academy in the 10th year of the Oscars, which movie would you have picked for the winner?
This is really hard.
No, I'm torn between two.
Yeah, I think ultimately, if I was a member of the Academy, I'd be voting for Stage Door. I just think that the focus on women and the performances are all really great, and the script is excellent.
Very fair. Very fair. I think, to be honest with you, I'm going to take the bigger picture stance. And this year, it's always back and forth with me, but I'm going to think beyond my own personal preference. I'm going to say A Star is Born, I think, was a really cool look into the industry. And I imagine was very affecting for people that watched it and had knowledge of that industry. And that color, I mean, come on. The color.
I am really torn on that one because I think there's a lot. It's so good, and March's performance is excellent.
Yeah, I'm going to go with The Star is Born.
Dang. Okay.
Just say Dead End, Sarah.
Please, that would make it perfect. I don't want to compel you.
But genuinely, though, because to me, it's between those three movies. I do see why, The Life of Emile Zola, I could see an argument for it because of what we mentioned in terms of, at least lightly addressing larger social issues that were relevant
and,
at the
to
time.
be fair to Emile Zola, the contemporary audience would know the Dreyfus Affair. So they wouldn't necessarily need to be, I am not as familiar with
the OJ
it,
thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that is very, very true. So I can see why that won, but I do think also Dead End addressed a lot of larger social issues well, which were very relevant at the time and are still relevant today. So that is my pick. I think I picked Dead End as the winner for this year. So we have zero consensus.
So one of my takeaways, we just all win. So
this makes total sense. Yeah, I love, and I love Stage Door, but I was between Dead End and A Star is Born. So I'm glad it's getting its due.
Yeah, I'm glad all of these movies kind of got recognized by us, the final say in what movies are good each year.
Correct.
I am very excited for our upcoming video bonus where we get to hash out our current top fives because I really want to see where the champ ranks
gonna
on
get
Jake's
heated.
now.
Will it even be on there? Who knows? It's gonna be,
I don't know. It's gotta be. It was like a life-changing movie for you. You called this one the water champ. Like this one is embedded in your psyche now.
I don't know. Maybe the water champ superseded original champ.
Oh,
Who
man.
knows? Anything can go at the
that'd be
video
crazy.
bonus. So you guys better be ready to watch, not just listen.
And on that note, be sure to join us next month for the 11th episode, where we will cover the 11th Academy Awards. The nominees for that year are The Adventures of Robin Hood, Alexander's Ragtime Band, Boys Town, The Citadel, Four Daughters, Grand Illusion, Jezebel, Pygmalion, and Test Pilot. And next year's winner, Frank Capra's You Can't Take It With You. Like, comment, subscribe, share it with your movie-loving friends. Maybe find us on social media or email us if you disagree with our takes, especially Jake's. That would be a good time.
Not email me. Don't check my email.